Hello, this is Joel Kopf. I did kind of a little brief thing earlier, and this is going to be a little bit longer video, just because I can talk and I could get talking, and maybe a few of you might be interested in what's going on. After I did Wolby, I did SYM. I did the one-year program. I think there were about somewhere close to 80 of us that did SYM that year, and during that time, I actually took a lifeguarding class that Word of Life offered because they needed people to be working on the lake, Screen Lake. And so I took the class because I was intrigued. And then after I graduated from SYM, I ended up in Arizona. And people may wonder, they say, oh, why are you in Idaho? You know, whatever. Actually, this is where I'm from, the inland Northwest, which is Northwest Washington, North Idaho, Western Montana. And I grew up, most of my growing up was north of Spokane there in Eastern Washington, but the September after I graduated from high school, my parents moved to Phoenix. So my brother Jonathan, who also did Wolby with me, had graduated from a school in Phoenix, so he considered home Arizona. But I hadn't. I'd actually gone back up after my parents moved down to Arizona and I helped them. I'd gone back and taught skiing at 49 degrees north there, north of Spokane, and then went down to Arizona. So after I graduated from Wolby, I went down to Arizona and was looking for work, and I thought, well, hey, you know, I have this lifeguard thing, I'd like to do it. I ended up working 2 summers. That first summer was '88. At Big Bear Lake, California, a Christian camp in Big Bear Lake, California called Pine Summit. And there they had something I'd never seen before, not at the camp, but in Big Bear Lake. They had a 3-race series where each race you swam a certain distance, and then you biked, and then you ran, called triathlon. I'd never seen anything like it. I'd done all sorts of sports, football, basketball, soccer, skiing, downhill skiing, and so it really intrigued me. And so the second summer that I worked for Pine Summit, I ended up doing that. And as it's turned out, over the years, I've done a lot of them. I've not become pro, but I've been an elite triathlete up till last year. So during college, I just did a few. Couldn't really afford to do it. Couldn't, you know, had to work to go through college, and had to was too busy to really train and stuff. But after I got out of college in the mid-90s, I just started doing triathlons, and I've only done 3 Ironman, the long distance. Everything else has been Olympic distance or sprint distance, which many people associate triathlon with the Ironman, which triathlon just is tri, you know, so means 3, swim, bike, run. It's the typical order. And so over the course of time, I've become actually a certified USA triathlon coach, and I've actually become a certified US Masters swim coach as well. Let's see if I can move out of the sun so I'm not just squinting at you guys. So one of the things I've really gotten into, like I said, I've done 3 Ironman, but Ironman is my worst distance. I do very well in the off-road triathlon where you mountain bike. So you swim, mountain bike, trail run. And Xterra is a name brand just like Ironman, and I've done a whole bunch of Xterras. One year as a representative for Xterra, and I've been able to qualify for nationals for Xterra. Well, actually I qualified more times, but did nationals in Xterra 4 times, 4 different times, and I've done Xterra Worlds 2 times, and then a year ago, September 2015, I qualified for the International Triathlon Union World Championships and went to Sardinia, Italy, and did that. So that's just one of the things I've been doing. And this year, for some reason, it's just an off year. It's a recovery rest year, I guess. I'm not sure. But I'm going to end up, for the first time in 20 years, not doing a triathlon. So that has been part of my income, actually, has been coaching a little bit, coaching some. So another thing, like I said in the little brief preview, is I've gone to, well, done a bunch of short-term trips. I've gone to Alaska, helped put summer, youth kids camps on at four churches that didn't have this staff. I've gone to Mexico. I've gone to Nepal, gone to Papua New Guinea, gone to Uganda. And then one of the things I said in the shorty is that 2 different summers I volunteered in Canada with an organization called NAME, which stands for North American Indigenous Ministries. And the first one was some wilderness camps I helped do, and then the second one was soccer and basketball camps and kids clubs up the coast of British Columbia. And NAME, when they do those summer programs, especially the second one, it's called Summer Ministry Institute, SMI, they do take a few days and do some extensive training just so that you'll learn about the culture of the Native Americans in Canada. They're called First Nations. Here where I live, they're called tribes. In Canada, they're called bands. And I think maybe the eastern U.S., they don't like being called tribes. I'm not sure, but here that's actually what they call them. And so the natives of, obviously North America was originally their habitation, and then the Europeans and others have come in and taken over. And so they just train you on how to deal with the culture of the people, the mindset, and where they're coming from. And so I had no like specific goal for doing that. I just felt like, God was leading me to do it. So after I got done with the second summer, and those weren't consecutive, they were a few summers apart, I started working for a sawmill in Coeur d'Alene, and it was paid me. It's the best paying job. The work I was doing is the best paying job I've had to date, and good hours, good benefits, retirement, the whole thing, and I just hated it. And I realized the reason I was there was for the money. That was just why I was there. And so after a lot of agonizing over, well, what am I going to do, I quit. Well, during that time, I'd been looking for some property. I'd been renting at a mobile home park, and I had been looking for some property, and nothing just seemed quite right. So after I quit, actually I used that time to go to Missouri to do the national championship for USA Triathlon Olympic distance. A lady that I knew who was a swim coach that I would jump in and do swim workouts and learn some of my technique from her, said, "Hey, you wouldn't know anyone who'd like to buy some land, would you?" Well, I had been looking for land, like I've already said, and but then I quit my work and I was just couch surfing, camping, sometimes staying with my parents when I worked on some of my dad's rentals, just bopping around. So I said to her, "Well, shoot, I would." And I laughed, ha ha. She said, "Oh, I'd like to sell it to someone I know who's going to take good care of it." And I just said, "Well, I'm not working." And she said, "Well, you will be." So I went and looked at it. I liked it. Looked at it a couple of times, liked it, and so ended up meeting up with her attorney, setting up the paperwork. And sure enough, before I even got the paperwork signed, I was working. I was working as a contract forester and did that for a couple of years. And it just so happened that that land was on the Coeur d'Alene Reservation. Well, do you think that's a God thing? I mean, here I've spent 2 summers with NAME, and then I end up finding land. This land popped in my lap. I mean, I didn't pay any of the interest she had paid. She was halfway through paying off the land. I started paying off what she'd been paying, making those payments. Didn't repay her any of the interest, just the principal. But it's on the reservation. And after a couple of years, I ended up quitting the contract forestry and company and working full-time for 5.5 years at the Coeur d'Alene Tribal Wellness Center, which back when it was started in '98 doesn't mean health type things like it does. That word means, at least here in the western northwest. It just was like a fitness club, like a 24-hour, like a Oz Fitness. It's a very nice facility, and so I ended up starting in aquatics, working full-time as a lifeguard there, and became manager and such. Then I quit that for a few years, went back to doing contract forestry work. I became a professional ski patroller, Silver Mountain and Kellogg, Idaho, just doing a whole rotation of different jobs. And then after 3 years, some of the work that I was doing just fell through. Some of the forestry work fell through, and I needed work, so I got hired on part-time at the Wellness Center again to get a triathlon club going and to coach it. And one of the biggies for triathlon, of course, is you got to swim. And a lot of people around here don't know how to lap swim. And so I've taught at least 40 adults how to swim, most of them so they could do their triathlon. And then I became a USA swim coach, and now I'm a USA Masters 18 and over swim coach, certified coach. And so I just do those things, but I do it part-time at the Wellness Center. I work as like I already said, I ski patrol full-time in the winter. I do some mountain bike patrolling in the summer, and I just do a whole mix of things. So one of the reasons I am sitting right where I am is this is to my right, is I'm on the divide between the Clearwater and the St. Joe divide. And the St. Joe River goes on down into Lake Coeur d'Alene, which then out of it flows the Spokane River, flows right through Spokane, Washington, just 20 minutes drive away, and on down, ends up in the Columbia River. The Clearwater, to my left, flows down, hits the Snake River, which flows on into the Columbia, into the Pacific Ocean. The Clearwater, to my left over here, you guys can't see it, you can only get a slight idea, is the ancestral territory for the Nez Perce. Now, and to my right is the ancestral territory for the Coeur d'Alenes, which reservation I live on. Now, this is not reservation at all. Just like all across U.S. and Canada, the people lived here, they used this to hunt, they used this to berry pick, and all this. This was their land, this was their living, this is what they did. All of Lake Coeur d'Alene on up to Sandpoint and into Montana, and the eastern part of Spokane was part of the Coeur d'Alene's ancestral territory, but they've been put on a much smaller land section. Now, of course, they can go anywhere they want, but all of this used to be theirs, and then all of this used to be the Nez Perce. Of course, the Nez Perce is who Chief Joseph and took that band. He is trying not to fight the soldiers. He is trying not to get into war. He tried to make it to escape in Canada, and they captured him and ended up putting them on the reservation. And so here's my question. Here's the reason I'm bringing this up. This land is beautiful. It used to be theirs. This, to my right, used to be the Coeur d'Alenes to hunt, fish, live, trap, and fish, well, like I said, and everything. It's been shrunk down. If you own some land, if you had property and our federal government said, hey, sorry, off you go, we're just going to put you in an apartment. Now, maybe some of you live in an apartment, but if you owned land, would you like that? And if this same Caucasian people who were in charge of the government where also came is missionaries and Catholic priests, and by what the government told you, started putting you on boarding school. Now, especially in Canada, there were hunters paid by the Canadian government to hunt down the native kids, and they wouldn't ask permission, they wouldn't pay or anything, they would just go out, they'd hunt them, they'd take them and put them in the boarding schools. So the kids just disappeared. How would you like it if our government just one day took your kids and said, sorry, or didn't even say anything? They just said, oh, we're putting them in school of our choice. And in the boarding schools, they were not allowed to wear the dress they liked, that they were used to. They were not allowed to speak their language. And in fact, there was a lot of sexual molestation that went on by the priests, by the missionaries, by the other people. There's a lot of physical abuse that went on. What do you think that would do to family units? Just the stability of a home if the kids are forcibly taken from the home, raped, beat, and all that. What do you think that